Hi everyone, this is the first in three videos where we're going to look at drum and bass and getting an initial beat down before we start adding our actual bass and synths and other things after that. Okay, so this is the beat that we're going to create. So I'll take you step by step through each of the sounds. We're going to use a sampler instrument to drop some samples into. We're going to use a break to chop up and combine with the rest of the samples as well. Yeah, so anyway, first things first. I have given you a little Christmas drum and bass gift, which is a fairly big selection of sample packs that you can use. So I think this probably equates to maybe about 10 gigabytes worth of samples that I've sort of built up over the years. So I'll put a link to this where you can download them on from OneDrive, so you can download them for yourself. So there's different types of samples in each one. This is kind of breakbeat samples, and you go in and there's MP3 demos, and then there's loops, and then there's individual drum hits. And then, for example, if we look at, I've used the liquid drum and bass for the example that I'm going to go through with you. So there's a liquid drum and bass loops, which shows you the actual full loops. And then you've got and then we've got the one shots, which are the individual hits. So, for example, bass kick sounds, etc. Claps and snares. There's rides and crashes, and then there's other percussion and stuff you could take as well. Now, if you are looking at what you've downloaded the packs, you may see the list of files has a sort of a .wav format, which is an audio file, and there may also be a duplicate, which is .wav.asd. The ASD file format, you can't really use that for anything apart from Ableton, so just ignore that. A good way to kind of remove that from the list when you're selecting your samples is to go up to the top here in your Finder window. And you can organize the files in the Finder window by kind, which means it will group all of the WAVs together and then all of the .asds separately, so you can kind of keep them out of the way. So if I select kind, then you'll see that all those ASDs are kind of at the bottom and all my WAVs are now together, so it's easier to skip through them one by one. Okay, so those are the sample packs. You can download those. I'll give you the link next to this video, and you can choose whichever ones you want. So I have used the liquid DnB samples just for this demonstration. So once again, this is the groove we're going to come up with. So I'll take you step by step how we create this. So I'm just going to start a new track. Cool, so the first thing we're going to do is create a software instrument. So I want the kick drums, the snare drums, and the hi-hats and cymbals to be triggered with MIDI, not by dropping in individual audio clips. And I'll show you the reason why I want to do it this way. So let's open this up. So software instrument, and then if you make sure the details drop down is up, where you can see instrument, you can double click. So you can click on this drop down and select sampler and stereo, and then you can hit create, and this will be the instrument track here. If the actual instrument, if the sampler doesn't open, then you can either click on the middle of this little blue bar here, which is the instrument on the channel strip. Alternatively, if the browser window is open, you can click up here to open the sampler window as well. So it looks kind of complex, lots of faders and knobs and stuff. We've looked at this briefly before, but all we're going to look at today is the mapping area. So if we click on mapping, So this little yellow light comes on, we can see the mapping area. I'm going to turn off all the other ones because we just don't need them. The reason I want to use the sampler as a way of triggering our sounds is because we can load in quite a lot of sounds and then choose our favourite ones. So it makes the whole process of finding the best sound for the groove a lot quicker. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my Finder window over here. I've found one of my sample packs, Liquid DnB One Shots, and I'm going to use. I'm going to select a bunch of bass drum or kick drum samples to get me started. So I'm just going to choose number 1. I'm going to scroll down to wherever the last one is. There's 51 of them. Hold Shift and click, and that will select all of those samples. And then all I have to do is drag them from here into this mapping window. So if I click and hold, I can drag them over, and depending on how high you put the mouse will change how it spreads the samples across the keyboard. I want them to be 1 sample per key, so I'll have the mouse quite low, and you can see that each column has one column per key on the keyboard essentially. So let's bring it down. There's 51 samples, so I want to make sure I've got enough space for all of them. So I'll bring it to C1, let go. You might see a loading bar that says importing, and then we can see that it's imported all the kicks. If I start clicking on the keyboard, then you can see we can audition each of the sounds. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing for my snare drums and my hi-hats. So new track, sample instrument, create. Turn off the sections I don't want, turn on mapping window. I will go to my Finder window, and I'll find some claps and snares. You can choose these from any of these folders. They each have their own selection of where are they? Drum hits, hi-hats, kicks, hi-hats, snares, whatever. They might be labeled slightly differently, but if you just search enough, you can find them. So I'm going to go back to my liquid drum and bass. I'll choose my claps. Here's my list of .wav files. Once again, don't use the .asd ones, they're the wrong format. So I'm going to select all of my .wav files. Go back into Logic. Oops, don't want that there. And let's drag all these snare drums into the sampler. Once again, I want 1 sample per key. I can let go, and it will load them in there. Okay, and finally we do it for the hi-hats and cymbals. In fact, I'm just going to name them first to make sure it's easier to understand. Snare, and then final track for the hi-hats. Turn on mapping, turn off the modulator, synth modulators, all that stuff, don't want that. And then we'll go to our Finder window, hi-hats, rising crashes, select all of the .wav audio files and drag them into the sampler. Once again, I'm starting from C1, which is one of the lower notes on the keyboard, just because there's quite a lot of samples and I want to make sure there's enough space on the keyboard to fit all of them. Okay, starts off with crashes, then you've got some hi-hats, and then you've got some ride cymbals. Okay, so let's double click on that and type in cymbals. Okay, so now if you have your keyboard in front of you, I'm using the virtual keyboard, whichever track you select, you've got a selection of different sounds. Okay, cool, right. That's fine. That's this video over. So join me in the next video and I'll go through programming in the drum beats.